Hi, Francis. Thanks for joining us on Women's Circle.
Well, hello, Carly, and really a big thank you to you for inviting me to come along. I'm really appreciative. I'm really excited.
I am really excited because I think that the work you do is really profound. And I would love to learn a bit more about it because I think for the women that I serve,
Yes.
when they become a mother,
Yes.
the tools that you teach are
Yes.
so helpful for all our relationships, but
Yes.
particularly our intimate ones. So I wonder if we could start by you telling us a little bit about your journey to
Sure.
how you found the work that you do.
Well, I didn't know that I wanted to be a relationship therapist, so I can't say that that was ever my big yearning. And I suppose I would say I just fell into it by chance. But when I reflect on the journey to getting there, of course, more pieces started to fit until there was actually a nice little picture there that says, oh, this is the work you really love doing and you're passionate about, and it's exciting. And so, yes, I'm called an Imago Relationship Therapist, and I went on to do more training to learn how to be an Imago couples weekend workshop presenter. And the couples workshop is called Getting the Love You Want. And I wish I was the creator, but I'm not. The creator is named is Hubble Hendricks, and his second wife, Helen LeKelly Hunt. They both had been married once before. And so how did I become a relationship therapist? I suppose that it's only upon reflection and my journey that I realised that and this is what I share with couples, whether I do it in individual sessions here in my office or the best work I can do is at the couples workshop, is that we begin to understand that, and as Havel puts it, I mean, not really, this is my work is about what this guy has shared with the world in that book called Getting the Love You Want, a guide for couples, right? The book's been out for over 30 years. It was a New York bestseller, and it's been revised, but few things are tweaked, okay? It's kind of a classic before you get to 100 years. But so from the moment that you're born, right, you don't realise your little person, or you, the little person, is actually collecting information all the time. And it's fed to us by the very people who are supposed to make us feel safe, wanted and loved, and nurture and guide us into what is genetically already predispositioned, because we're born perfect as we are, and all the elements of genetic coding is there, and it starts to present and show up, and our parents are somehow supposed to know that this means this and this is the best thing for you, okay? And our couples, a lot of parents, they try their best and they do want to love and show the care, but a lot of us parent out of how we were parented. All my experience is that I knew I'm not doing that when I grow up sort of experience, okay? And I know in my own relationship with my children, the very thing I said I'm never going to do, when these young children, these young little specimens of mine pushed, push came to shove. And as I said, these particular teenagers of mine colluded, as teenagers, as siblings will do, or you want them to have each other's back, and then they just really pressed every button, and the very worst of one of my parents came out, and bang, I did exactly the thing I didn't want us to do. So what I was trying to say is, how did I get to the journey I was at? Well, I was given this information, right? I collected this data with my little child's mind, right? And my little, maturing or immature learnings or knowledge about feelings or thinking or doing and acting and sensing, and the information my parents given me, the verbal and the non-verbal information. And I didn't realize it was leading me to continue this journey of, I would say I was a lifelong learner, but it's really, I just keep jumping into this next thing thinking, now I'll know. I'll never make that mistake again. Or now I'll do this and I'll never go there again, And in the end, before I knew it, I had all these credentials. I'm a registered nurse, I'm a midwife, I've got a degree in theology, I've got a master's in social science, And all those things have taken me places. I've lived in other countries across the world. I was a great home birth advocate. So my babies were born at home. I was pro midwives. I worked in hospital systems, in the public and private systems. And, you know, I listened to the medical model. I listened to some of the nursing models, and some of them horrified me too. But then I had this sense of the way that I was going to bring up my babies. And, you know, I didn't know these imprints and impressions, which this theorist calls is this imago, this Latin word for image. So anyway, but by the time I was jumping from career to career and all these other little certificates and voluntary work that I would do, and I worked in Catholic psychiatric pastoral care. I'd visit people's mental health. I worked in a hospital as a chaplain, so I visited people at the very worst moments in their lives, aren't they? Their children are sick, or they're sick, or something sudden has happened and they're stuck in a room with four walls. And now the questions of who am I and where's life taken me? I had all those experiences, but still I didn't feel like I knew or I belonged or was problematic. And eventually I completed a master's. I mean, put it this way, you know, I had a husband now and I had 6 children, right? You have a brand new baby, then you go off and do a master's. What's that about? What is that about? But anyway, somehow I did. I completed that. I've been overseas to East Timor, even pastoral work there, still looking for something. But when I launched myself in private practice, couples kept showing up. I did training as a family therapist because I said, I come from a family. I've got a family. I worked in all these facilities where families, when someone is ill, family shows up, or we wonder, where is the family? So I did that, and, you know, hung out my shingle. I really didn't know how to start a private practice, but I learnt that quick, smart. And a couple started showing up. And upon reflection, of course, it makes sense. As a midwife, I was always surrounded by couples. It was comfortable. It's what I knew. And I loved that work of bringing that new life in. And in those very early hours, being there with this new mum and new dad, and being able to just calm their anxiousness or their excitement, and let them understand that you and that little creature there, you just naturally know how to do this. You just need to believe, and for someone to be there, just chilling you out, and it's going to happen, you know. And those babies can plug in by themselves if you were left in nature. We know that, you know, those babies can crawl up, they're born upside down, they can spin themselves around, and they can propel themselves with that basic reflex with their little feet and their hands, and they can get all the way up to that nipple and find where to latch onto, just like you might see little puppies or kittens. So human babies can do that if we leave you alone. If we leave you alone, there's the message there. But we don't, and women don't want to be left alone, I suppose. We're all just too frightened or anxious, or we want the best, allegedly. And, you know, there is a lot of great care. Shouldn't be too harsh. But, yeah, there's lots of wonderful families and couples and women and midwives and facilities that do that well. But anyway, these couples just kept showing up. And then I realised, oh, I need some skills, you know, because sometimes I was using my family therapy kind of processes and asking the questions, you know, and I was already pushing the buttons. They're already pushing the buttons themselves, and then I'm encouraging them to do it in front of me. And I was just this is the picture in my mind, they would just be like that. They would just at each other, and, you know, and I'm trying to pull them apart so that I could calm them down and ask, you know, a little bit more, or settle them down. And sometimes I thought they left worse than when they came, it's not a very nice feeling. But mostly I thought, I really have to understand what's going on. And then I went searching for what? Again, searching for more, you know, lifelong learner. But it's when I searched and I found, and I could actually put my life, the rest of my life, just pause, everyone, I got to go. And I went to this training. Within the very first hours, being with complete strangers, but they were therapists, you know, I learned these things about myself, but they all got flipped around. Like, I used to say, it's so hard living with my husband. Then I realised very quickly how hard it must be for him to live with me. Doesn't that make sense? Where's that been? And that my childhood was showing up in my adult relationship, because in my childhood I felt alone, I felt lonely, I didn't belong, and I was problematic. And that they were the same sort of language I used in my marriage. It was the same language I was using in all the workplaces. I would sort of up and change, sometimes people pointed the finger and said I'm a problem. So things were just reinforced, and I just started carrying these words around that were from my childhood, and that I didn't have the skill or the knowledge that I could respond to those words. And so when I started this training for Imago Relationship Therapy, I had to do work on myself. That's the very first thing. And certainly as a relationship therapist, I'm first, but then I have to do the work with my husband. And so very quickly, here I am with this relationship that wasn't the best. And that was the other thing that showed up. Here's train wreck me in my relationship, thinking I can fix every other train wreck. I thought that was another huge learning. But, I still only had my old school's skills of how to get him to do what I wanted. And that's not the thing. You don't want to get people to do what you want. You want to be able to communicate your needs and for someone to hear that. And then for you both to understand that, that's what relationship is. What more does the relationship need from me? It's not asking, what am I going to get, right? That's a big mistake. So very quickly this started to happen and change. And my husband and I did go and do a couples workshop, the very couples workshop that I present to couples today. And so after that, things just changed. It's 10 years ago. I mean, things aren't absolutely perfect all the time, but generally speaking, it's more of what we want, that beautiful start that we had, that we liked each other, that we were there for each other, have each other's back, and that we can talk to each other. And we are different. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I started practicing as an Imago relationship therapist. I think it's just such wonderful work. Yeah. I just want everyone to experience it if they want.
I want everyone to experience it, because I think there's some really profound stuff came out, and I've done the weekend workshop with you, and a few of the things that stuck, and I'd love to discuss some of those with you.
Sure.
One of the things is that you unconsciously choose a partner that in some way mirrors your caretakers or caretaker in childhood. And that the reason for that is so that you can complete childhood. What?
I know. Wouldn't you just run the other way?
Absolutely.
If you thought, what? I'm going to go through that again?
So can you explain that a little bit? Because I think even just knowing that, I've said that to friends and they've looked at their partner and been like, oh my God.
And no one likes to hear they married their mother or their father, do they? That is the yuckiest thing, isn't it?
But what does it mean? Like, what are we actually attracted to, and what are we trying to do there unconsciously?
Well, it says first unconsciously, okay? So I said your little mind from the moment you're born is starting to collect, your parents are starting to leave their footprints on you. You start experiencing them. Just like we talk about carbon footprints around the planet, okay? So here we're leaving evidence or traces on our little beautiful child. And so this theorist, he says this word imago, which is image, they're the imprints and impressions, right? So we leave evidence of the positives and the negative aspects of our parents, right? There's memories, right? Some of the experiences, some of the good experiences, and mostly the frustrating or the harmful or scary impressions are left there as well. Because as human beings, by the time we're 7 years old, we have this negativity bias. Our oldest part of our brain, which is at the base of the skull, right? And that's where the unconscious is, right? There's a part of our brain which is our defense mechanism. Most of us would know about fight, flight, and freeze response. But that mechanism is also, in mammals, it recognizes safe and unsafe, And so it's collecting the data of the fun things from our parents, their positive traits, but it's really more honed in on the negatives. And like we talk about how the positives, they just slide off you like, Teflon, right? You can see what Teflon does, don't you? There's your fry pan and that goes slipping and sliding away. We forget about the happy times, but the negatives, that's like the Velcro. It's going to rip off, isn't it? And you can just hear the noise and you can see the pulling apart. So the negatives are like that. And his theory goes on to say, we don't realise it. We're growing up and there's all that information there. And I try and, highlight it in the workshop as the baggage we start to collect. Oh, that's in that bag. That's a developmental thing. Oh, that's a social thing. That's our protective mechanism there, and this is part of our cosmic journey, but he says that it's there all the time and something triggers it and wakes it up. Because there's a whole lot of stuff, they tell us about our unconscious. We just go around doing things unconsciously all the time. The classic example is about driving. You're just going to get in a car and sometimes you just realise, I got there, I've just driven 20 kilometres and I've got no idea. You don't remember the buildings you pass or what the weather was like. You just get there, right? So a lot of our stuff is just there. But he says unconsciously it's there all the time. And his theory is to say it's searching for a match, right? And the match will go off whether you're in the presence of, because a lot of people are matching online, the screen, okay, even before they connect by, like we've got facial. We've got, we can see each other, but a lot of people are just typing, aren't they? And even just those words that people use, but the facial expression, the body language, when they're in person with somebody, their movement, maybe smell, all those little pictures that are going off at once are waking up this imprint and impression. And it says when your subconscious says, I've met a match, and it happens very quickly. It can happen on the first. Most of us know that on the first date. Or sometimes we've known a person for a long time, but all of a sudden something shows up and bang. And it's like the magnets facing the correct way, where they just go bang, they go straight to each other. And very quickly, then he would say that your body, your unconscious has said, you've met a person who's had a similar family story, something that is familiar to you, experience or words or facial or body language of somebody who's important to you, but one of you has learned to experience it or to express it one way, and the other learns to experience and express it the opposite way. Okay, there's the match. He says, he calls that we meet in the window of the romantic phase. And if you know that, where very quickly you're thinking she's the best thing since sliced bread, and you think he's Mr. Wonderful, and very quickly you're not aware of it, but you're flooded with your own chemicals, which are telling you you're in love with being in love, not with that person. It's not saying that, right? But very quickly you're flooded with this, and now you're doing all those things you probably wouldn't dreamed of doing, or that the family story had said, don't do that, we don't do this, we're not those sort of people. And all of a sudden you're giving to that person all the things that you don't realize that you're just showing up already as the perfect safe person who I can be as safe and me, and that person can be safe in me in that space between you. And it feels so yummy. And sometimes your friends are trying to say, you don't want to know that person. They're trying to, what are you doing, but no one can tell you. In fact, if someone tried to say that's not the right person for you, then you don't like those people for saying that, and you'll just stick even closer with this person. And so historically, history's always told us about honeymoon phase, romantic phase, chemistry. There you go. All those words have been there that this theorist is using to say, if you've met in that romantic phase, you've met the right person. But there's a but. It's all going to SHIT soon.
And that's the power struggle, right?
It's going to wear off, right?
Tell me about the power struggle.
So the blinkers, the blinders are going to fall off, and all of a sudden, and he says it's got a lot. You just think about it. It's like as soon as somebody's got the ring on your finger, or they've made a commitment, we're engaged, and we start telling people, or you moved in together because now it becomes public. All of a sudden, when those things, because now you feel, it's almost like unconscious. I don't have to try so hard. This is a done deal. And sometimes it feels like that. And I actually remember thinking in my relationship at the beginning, where'd he go? What happened? He got the ring on my finger and he's gone. And in fact, I remember thinking, he's just like them. Those awful people who are always pulling the rug from under me. So I remember saying that. Yeah. But then, so he's saying now all of a sudden, you're so free to be you because of this commitment, okay, right? And now it's like the parent police shows up. We don't do that in this family, And so when your partner, might have, like if you've got gambling in your family, right, whether it be simple things like raffle tickets or going to bingo or the dogs or horses, and this, you match with the opposite person. Their family, they don't do that stuff. And in the romantic phase, yeah, I'll go to the dogs with you, I'll go to the bingo, or yeah, what's this, whatever. But then all of a sudden, when that wears off, all of a sudden it's like, we don't do that. And then the person says, oh, come to the dogs today? No. And then all of a sudden you go, what? You're hearing a no. No, I don't do that. I don't like gambling, And then all of a sudden it's like they could have said, sorry?
Sense of betrayal, like in this romantic phase, you were all of these things that I wanted, and now you're saying, now I'm seeing the real you. Did you lie to me?
Well, no, they didn't lie. They say no, they don't want to do that. They're showing up as being different, and that's what he says. It's difference. You were brought up in a different system to me. And so now that's the real work. We call it a power struggle because somebody is, well, it's kind of like a loss. Right? I thought they were the person I wanted and now they're not. And so we sort of feel one will sort of still be trying to convince them or trying to get in their face and talk them into it. And the other one is just going to go back to the way they used to protect themselves, blank face, disappear. Oh, yeah, maybe. And of course, maybe never shows up. And so now you start hurting each other that way. And then all of a sudden you start getting into bargaining. Well, if you do that for me, then I'll do that for you. And that doesn't go very far either, does it? We don't get out of that. But his theory says we go to the power struggle, which is conflict. Conflict is growth trying to happen, okay? And he says that's the goal. We have to go to the conflict to find out what does it really mean? Or where has that story come from? And we need to know more information about that. Because once we can calm each other down to talk about what's going on there, then we start learning skills about saying, oh, that's okay, my partner's different to me. And then we start saying, well, how can I meet that person in some way, and vice versa. But there are going to be some things where you're going to say, no, I can't do that, or I won't do that. But I'm happy that you want to do it, or how can I help you? Things like that. But yeah, the power struggle, he says, and at the power struggle, that's when our childhood pain is showing up, and that now as adults, right, we want to relive the childhood unfinished business or the childhood pain, so that now as adults, we can now appropriate this story, okay, and get a different outcome. And just because your partner is showing up and sitting there and listening to you, in a lot of ways, even that's just a great step forward, as opposed to blank face, I'm out of here. Yeah. No, and gone. Yeah.
And there's a couple of things there. You said that you usually match with your opposite.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that really stuck for me was this maximizer minimizer role. Yes. I'd love you to explain that in a little bit of detail, because again, I think that's like, once you realize that, it's not so like, oh, you're against me. You can actually see from a different perspective what's playing out.
Yeah. So Hubble likes to describe people and their behaviours as a learnt behaviour, again, by the parents who bring them up. And so the maximising, you do your own assessment. I don't tell you what you are, right? I can barely know what I am. No, I do know what I am, okay? But with work, every time I work on myself and do more workshops and work with my husband, these things go away, or, because there's nothing bad or wrong, okay? It's that, is it a reaction or is it action, you know? Because when you act on something, you know, you've got that thought and you've got your plan and that's what you want to do. Whereas the reaction is when it's just, it's how you've learned to protect yourself against something, and the very worst can come out. It starts being threatening, or you start being punitive, or you start putting consequences, or if you don't do this, then I won't do that sort of talk. And, you know, you just get in a standstill, don't you? Where can you go after that? Whereas the maximizing is you just own some of your current or past behaviors, right? And then you own, and your partner does theirs, okay? And you start to realize, oh, the very thing I want from my partner, right, is I actually push them into that behavior purely by the way I react to them, right? The way I behave encourages more of those maximizing or minimizing behaviors, which just get us stuck in our positions, right? So I have to understand, well, once I calm or I can show up for my partner, generally speaking, already that's the beginning. And I was going to say enough, but it's a good enough start for you now to be able to stay there and to understand, oh, I need to ask more. Is there more about that? Or I would like to share more about what's going on for me.
Yeah. So I like the vision of the maximizer is the octopus. I think that's a nice image.
But some people call it the hailstorm.
Or the hailstorm.
Yeah, you know, like the black cloud and then the hail pelting down on you.
So the maximizer,
you know, and the cloud is just over me and I'm putting it all over you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So
but the octopus is, you know, the arms everywhere. You know?
Yeah, and very much that like some of the traits that are identified, like they're the ones that probably keep the relationship going. Like they're sort of that real action oriented, lots of care, lots of love, but over the top kind of almost a neediness, which comes from their stuff.
And maybe controlling too, in a way.
Yes. And then the minimizer is the turtle, which I love that image of them just retreating or putting the wall up or just moving further away from the hailstorm.
That's really hard shell, isn't it? Yeah.
And then you say, when the octopus puts its arms down or the hailstorm, like, you know, recedes a bit, the turtle might come out of the shell. But then that's enough for the octopus to come back.
And then all those arms are whoosh, I got you again. Right.
And then the turtle's hidden again. And it's like, that's the cycle of the dynamic.
The couple dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
The couple dance. If you put all your arms, yes.
So yeah, no, exactly. Until you learn these techniques, and this is the crux of what Imago is this dialogue process.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to just explain what a dialogue is, because I really doubt many people have dialogues with each other.
All right. Okay. So you're really testing me now. Well, the word dialogue, first, die means two. There's two people having a conversation. I suppose most of us don't realise we're just taught to have monologues. You just have your say. I'm going to the shops now, and you get the keys and you're gone. Right? Yeah, no, today I'm doing blah, 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 blah. Yeah, gone, you know. And then you might say what you're doing today, and the other person just jumps on and says what they're doing today. And then you go back to what you're doing today, and you talk about that. And then they might talk about, oh, how you did that last week, but I'm doing it this week, you know. So we have about 5 different kinds of information going on at once, okay? Right? They're all just little monos of something happening. Whereas the dialogue is a way of, in a sense, retraining you to be able to share information and learn how to, again, hear information, okay? Because a lot of us, are unable to share information because they've never been given the opportunity. And so a lot of their words get stuck in their throat, or they've never been encouraged to talk freely more and more. Whereas others just keep talking and talking and talking, and there's kind of like no stop going on there, right? So And again, you know, just when you think about the minimizing and the maximizing behaviors, okay, what might happen quite frequently with the minimizer is that their partner says something to them and they just have this blank face and they don't do anything. And sometimes for the maximizer, it's like, oh, maybe I didn't make that clear enough. And so then they start giving another example. And then they don't get a reaction to that, you know, because now the minimizer's gone gaga land or back in the shell, or, you know, there might even be white noise in their head. Oh, they didn't, I didn't explain myself very well, so I'll explain another time. And so now, you know, you just keep saying the same, and couples say this, you're an ag, you just keep saying the same thing over and over again. But because when they look at their partner, they don't get any feedback that I understand you, or that I heard you, or hang on, tell me what that means, right? So we've actually, in effect, our culture just encourages us to be like that, where someone is blank and not saying anything, the other one is oversaying things, or things are caught up in your throat because you can't get it out there. Whereas, you know, with a bit of education, right, you invite the other, and that's what happens in the workshop, is, and on the very first night, you get told this is the foundational process, this invitation to your partner to come and sit with me. I want to share something with you. And because your partner's there with you and they're hearing, okay, my partner wants to talk to me, and this is, I'm committed to this relationship, so I'm going to say yes, I'll come and sit with them. I won't, you know, before I did this work, a couple of things would happen to me. My husband would try and ask, come and let's talk about such and such. And I would say later, 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 and later never came. And when I started doing this work, I realized all through my life, anytime anyone wanted to talk to me, it was because I was in trouble, you know, and there's really proof there, you know. I was accused of things, or I did do things, but I didn't know how to say, yes, it was me or not me, because my voice was stuck in my throat. And so, you know, I've been expelled from school. I've been told I don't fit into work teams. I'm not wanted in this workplace. I'm a problem. So, and his facial expression is classic. It just looked like not just one of my parents, both of them. I was stuck with both of them. And so we never got anywhere until we did the workshop. And it was like, oh, these are relationships. This is relationship science. These are rules. And again, the theory says, right, it's your stories in search of truth. If this doesn't resonate with you and it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay, right? Keep searching. You'll find what works for you, because it's not the only theory around on the planet, okay? But yeah, so, you know, with this invitation to come and sit, and, you know, both of you, these relationship rules, I'm going to try and find the best time for both of us to stop and talk, right? Because I want to make it safe enough for him to sit there with me, right? And he needs to make it safe enough for me to stay there with him. And then we have to learn what safety is. And there's a whole lot of things about it, how we sit across from each other, our facial expression, our body language, our gaze at each other. You know, we can't be rolling our eyes, as I see some couples just coming into this room going like as if they're saying, what the F, just like I used to, or still answering something on their phone, and they still do that, bring their phones in here, okay? It's beautiful at the workshop to see the phones get parked away, you know, that's during the break or something, you know, so people are realising, you know, this is important stuff. So yeah, so, you know, there's already, before you've even started saying a word, so much is being said in the unsaid word, isn't it? By the way, our willingness, our body language, our gaze at each other to sit across from each other and start something different. And then look, you can do a workshop on all these things, even the way people look at each other. I have couples that come here, and I see it at the workshop too. They won't sit face on with their partner. They're already this way, and they're barely like looking out of the corner of their eyes. And you think, wow, what is going on there? And I've got no idea, because it can mean lots of things. There's people who won't look at their partner anymore. Is that shame? Is that guilt? You know, or is it that, you know, you disappoint yourself as to how you behave towards your partner? So what's going on there? Some people are pushing their chairs away. They won't even let the partner in their space anymore. Are you scared, or someone going to hurt you? Or something really big's happened. So there's a whole lot of dialogue. You don't even have to say a word. It's just two of yous there, and you're already reacting to each other's presence. Okay, presence. Yeah.
And that's what you said. You like that. The important part of this work is there's an invitation.
Yeah.
Invitation to talk, and it's a deliberate subject.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways. Like you can actually talk about behavior changes, but you can also talk about beautiful things like affirmations or things you love about your partner, but you're doing it in that way where it's received because you've created a space. And I guess what's really profound about it is that the active listening is about repeating back what that partner is saying to you.
As closely word to word as your partner says it to you. Yes. Yeah.
And it works on both levels because you're actually having to actively take it in, remember it, and say it back. But they have to hear what is coming out of their mouth. And I think you said, for some partners, they talk and talk and talk and talk. And I'm certainly one of those. Oh, let me word it in another way. Let me get it across in another. You obviously didn't get it. Like, let me. And the dialogue for me allows me to slow down, to say things succinctly, and to say it once.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for the other person, the receiver, who may be good at listening anyway, but not responding, it's a chance for them to work on their skills. So that in itself is transformational.
And so you're both just again being able to just skill yourselves up, right? And a magical thing is about how the pause, when I've given my information and now learning, now I just have to pause, and my partner has to say something now. And sometimes this is what bothers us, is we've got partners who their eyes go up, they're thinking about what they have to say. And sometimes the pause just seems like, you think about 1 second, but then 10 seconds, right? And that's a skill in itself. Just sit there waiting, And initially they've learnt to be scared to respond too quickly because it gets them into trouble or doesn't get the result. But with time, you both get to understand, well, if that's my partner's response, right, how I react to it or how I receive it, what's my intention? I want to hear. I want to hear that they've interpreted this way, or they've been able to feed it back to me in my words, or accidentally brought in their own word. All of it's just such a huge learning,
And I think the other really interesting part of it is at the end there's a summary, and this is the bit I love. You then empathize with the reality of the partner that's spoken to you. So you don't have to agree, but you are seeing it from their reality. You are saying that is okay and that makes sense from your reality. And that's all we really want as humans. We just want not to be told we're crazy, not to be told we're wrong, to understand that someone can see that with our knowledge, our understanding, our history, that reality is real for us.
That makes sense when you say to me, this is what happens to you when I come home late. Or it makes sense why you think I can't be trusted, Yeah.
So for this, I think this work, especially when people become parents and there's all of a sudden, especially if they're first time, there's another being in their presence. So if they were already living parallel or they were fighting or whatever it was, got this added stress, I guess. How would you find time to start implementing some of these practices to strengthen your relationship?
Well, I try my best to get those couples when they come in and they haven't had a child. I tell them, come and do the workshop now, because what you're going to learn, right, is just going to keep showing up for the rest of your life, But now you'll be better skilled at it, okay? But I suppose the other thing is that, there's already a statistic for each couple that brings in the first child, 40% of relationships break down. They don't tell you how many get back together. But remember, as soon as that little child's brought into your presence, now there's the reality of your own imprints, because now that's how those memories start showing up. Because a lot of us are fighting over how, and they don't realise it, couples are fighting over, now your focus is on the child and you're abandoning me. It sounds pretty childish, doesn't it? But remember, we are just children with unmet needs and unfinished business until we own it, and that it's an aspect that will probably always be with me. But with time, I'm going to understand it, and I'm going to put that little child behaviour to bed. I don't have to be like that anymore, Francis. I don't have to be that. But yeah, it shows up sometimes. So the best thing to do is, I think this country, I just had a call from a couple today. Oh, my wife wants me to do this. I don't like counselling, but she wants me to follow up and she wants me to ask these questions. And already I'm thinking, is that the real reason to sound like I'm going to, invest my time and energy with you? But I answered as nicely as I could. And I said, oh, well, but I suppose at least he followed up on the call. As to what he's going to actually say to her, I don't know, or whether they'll come back. But the thing is, our culture says, if we need counselling, right, then this isn't the right relationship. We already say that. I don't do that,
I should be able to work it out on my own. Like that.
Or suck it up.
Yeah.
My mother always this, my father always that. And yes, your mother always this and your father always that from your child perspective. But we don't really know the cost of that, do we? And, at the moment, it's the 60-year-olds. So those people who've been in a relationship for a lot of years, they're walking away, so, and that even looks sadder, because if we don't have a lot of those long-term relationships, they're telling us that this is a good thing to be married and stay married long-term, then before we know it, we're all going to think, well, we're going to do what we did in the 60s and the 80s, just jump out and take with us whatever we've got, the unfinished business. And then a lot of us have children when we jump out as well. So we've already passed that legacy on to them. And things aren't going good. Instead of doing the work, because we don't believe in counselling, you jump out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you know, obviously there are relationships that are abusive. And it kind of resonated with me that some of the systemic kind of cycles we have would come because you're unconsciously matching with people that reflect that childhood. And if it was volatile in that way, you might go towards someone like that. So how, I guess doing this kind of work is basically halting and altering and changing that systemic cycle.
Yeah, because that's the ultimate, is the genetic. We're interrupting a genetic behaviour, the genetic, but the generational behaviour. Yeah, but people talk about it's in your DNA. Some of these sequencing. If it's already been there for all those years, we've got this in our DNA. So we're kind of like, now we're wired to be these kind of people as well. So, it's the beginning of bringing about the change you wish. But, a lot of couples aren't really volatile to start with, the volatility, which whatever you might talk about, because it could be the silence, which we say, which is the emotional pain. This one doesn't look at you, doesn't respond to you, doesn't give you an answer, actually walks away from you or turns away from you. I mean, that's a silent behaviour, isn't it? Right? But whereas we think volatile is more about that outward show, where you use loud words and mean words, and then throwing things, and then throwing you or throwing punches. In abusive relationships, that doesn't set in straight away. It comes with the relationship dance, right? The minimiser and the maximising behaviour. All of a sudden, the power struggle, someone's digging in a little deeper, and we become punitive and we raise the ante a little bit more. And then sometimes it's because in our childhood family, we've actually, the roadmap for us, how the parents behaved, we actually see those things, you know, where they actually do those sort of actions and use those sorts of words. But, you know, people who come into the relationship and they're the opposite and they don't do that, they can match sometimes. They raise the ante too, they give it back.
Yeah.
So I don't fully understand. But certainly if you're both coming together and saying our intention is, right? Our intention is to commit to the journey of this relationship and what we need more of and less of, they both will go away with some new learnings, okay? And like anything, we can learn at any age, really, okay? The old ways are there. They've been there for a long time. For some of us, you know, 30 years, 40 years before we come and do anything, right? And just to be reminded, it's easy to go back to that, but you've got new skills, and if you practice it, before you know, they sort of become second nature. And we stop, we slow down. We don't get that big, loud, volatile response before saying, oh, or we do it and then we say, oh, no, I don't want to talk about that anymore, you know, and you catch yourself. And even doing that in front of your partner, you see, you know, you say, oh, wow, you know, she gets it or he gets it, you know. Yeah, let's do this nicely or with our new ways.
It's practice. That's the key word you said. That this is lifelong practice.
Yeah.
That you can't. Yes, you may come together and have this beautiful romance, and it's so easy, and like all of a sudden it's not easy, and that's when a lot of people walk away.
Yeah.
I understand. I've been there, but
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's going to show up in every other single relationship you step into.
Absolutely. It'll go with you. And the next relationship, so there is the research that shows the next one, the second one being successful, there is a certain percentage, but again, they fail more than not. And then the third one fails quicker because now you know how to step out of it. Yeah.
And
But,
really interestingly, another thing that you talk about is exits. And it's like if you have exits, whether it is to physically step out of the relationship or even within the relationship, to put work before the relationship, to put interest before the relationship, like it's all good and well to have all these things, but if you're using them to avoid stepping into the relationship, there's no place for healing. There's no space.
Yeah. And so, you know, when we do the work with the exits, okay, is that we you know, that's why a lot of couples come as well, is because now we don't spend time with each other because we don't realize, you know, in the power struggle, it starts to feel unsafe or uncomfortable being with each other. And that we already know, oh, if I tell them, they're going to be angry or upset. So avoiding a discussion or having to tell the person just what really is going on for you, is you're avoiding that feeling, that discomfort. So, and to avoid it, we start creating exits, right? And some of the exits are really quite functional things. I mean, it's good to play with the kids, isn't it? But when you spend all your time with the kids, okay, because when I'm alone with my partner, I might have to look at them and see their hurt, because that's regularly what happens. One is lonely and the other one is so anxious. Well, they're busy. They keep themselves busy. That's how they deal with their anxiety. They keep themselves busy, and the other person is just there alone in their anxiety, trying in their own way to bring the other person back. But yeah, so we create lots of exits, you know, which can be, like I said, functional things. I mean, well, there's nothing wrong with having a drink, you know, but when now a drink becomes your best friend, and sometimes partners collude and think, oh, well, he'll go over there and drink and he'll leave me alone. Well, you know, there you go. You both, because it's uncomfortable when he's sober, or we might have to sit down and talk about something. We collude to allow that to happen. Yeah. But the worst is that, you know, then another person gets into a third person enters the relationship, and then that becomes a whole lot of different sort of hurts, isn't it? Again, and, you know, you can come back from that. But there's a lot of hurt and misunderstanding to come back from, plus another person's been involved, you know, and usually they have a partner too, a bunch of children as well. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot. There's so much, but I think this is really powerful, and I think a lot of people that listen to this, it'll be things they haven't heard before. Like, I certainly feel like I've read a lot and understood a lot, but I kind of had no idea about like,
yeah. So people have a strange idea about what couples counselling is, don't they? Well, you have no idea. I would have had no idea until I started doing it myself about, what it is. Why can't you open these topics with the people you love? You can tell everyone else about what you haven't told your partner, but you can't tell them. Isn't that bizarre?
Oh,
That's what
in our groups all the time. The women are very comfortable talking to other women.
Yeah.
There's such a barrier at home because it's so close, and it is a mirror of you. And it's easy to project onto the partner because then we don't have to look at ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where the deepest pain is, looking at yourself.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to be able to face that? But I think this gives a really nice set of tools for couples to do this together.
But many times when you've told things from your partner, we're not always explosive. Sometimes you go, oh, that's what's going on. Because when you haven't been told, you're creating this other story in your head, aren't you? Like you've catastrophized it, even amplified it like you wouldn't believe it. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's all bizarre, isn't it? Okay. I do this work all the time, and I just, we're all the same, but we're not the same. We don't look the same, but we're really coming down to a few kind of core messages that are misunderstood. Yeah.
And I'll put some notes in the notes for this, because I think the stages of development, which I've done a little bit of research on, are so interesting. And the wounds, the ruptures that occur at different ages, and how that affects how you show up in a relationship. Like,
and you keep creating those stages in the adult relationship.
Yeah.
You're wounded at the attachment phase, you're going to match with somebody who's avoidant or something, or ambivalent, or ideally you want someone who's safe. But if you met a safe person, you won't be in a therapist room. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's about exploration. When you're not with me, when you're not there, then the person gets anxious and all these other behaviors start showing up. See, and that's a childhood wound, when my parents didn't say goodbye to me or welcome me back as clearly as before, So that keeps showing up as well. Yeah. And then, competence, we get people who want to compete with each other all the time. And so we get a relationship where, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. You don't do that so well. So the negative starts showing up, So there's the competence, okay? Wow.
Oh, it's so interesting. And I think a lot of people will find this interesting. But I think more importantly, are you running another workshop soon? Can you tell us about what you're doing? Because I think people would love to reach out.
Yeah, no, my next workshop is the 5th, 6th and 7th of November, right? And we start that Friday evening, 6:30 to 9:30. And the hall is here at Clayfield. It's very big and spacious. There's lots of room, and I wouldn't have more than 5 couples ever, okay? And I have a helper who's there with me, right? But the first night is really important because firstly, are people going to show up, right? And then they come with a whole lot of ideas. She's going to tell me what to do. I've been dragged here. I'm scared. I'm going to get her. Or, some people are absolutely excited. They don't even know what's coming, but they're excited. And that's really good too, because I'm excited. And I can assure you, as soon as that starts happening, I say, this is happening. I'm excited. But in that first evening, I want to help you understand where we're going on the weekend, okay? And so I use all the tools I can. I've got a PowerPoint, I've got posters, I've got my what we call it, like where I write on whiteboard. There's a whiteboard there, and then there's flip chart as well, and props. I've got props there because I'm talking about the baggage, and I want to say there they are, they're right there. And when you physically drag full bags around, you can see how why you were depressed in your teenage life, all the misunderstandings, and why that might show up again in another part of your life. And so the props are there to help us to really to try and reach whatever way you learn, because we all know people have different ways of learning and understanding, okay? But the first night is to tell you where we're going, all right? I want you to hear what the journey is, because some people just come in off the street. They haven't done this work, and occasionally I've got some of my clients there. And then by that first night, I think it's really important to introduce the couples to each other as well, so they know each other's names, right? Because we're not strangers, but we're not really listening to each other's work. It's not about that. You get a little break in the middle of the night, and then we really start some work. And I hope you understand, it starts with what you learned as a child, and that we start doing work that night. And then, the use of breath work and meditation to help center you and help you leave the night and hopefully be able to just settle down and have a comfortable sleep and then come back the next day for more work. And again, just to bring you in, again, to center you, to realize you're going to be okay. Whatever work shows up today, whatever we think about, right, whatever pops up, we've got a tool to talk about it with. And I try to get around to each of you so I can do a process with you, okay? And, and that just helps them realize, oh, we can do this, okay? Yeah. But yeah, and so that's the first night. And then we come back the next day at 9 a.m. and we stay till 6 p.m. It's a pretty full day as well. Get an hour's lunch so you can go off and, just have a break. And then we come back again for Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And even by the end, you just see you can feel the release, for everyone. People just feel happier in themselves, with their partner, and, ready to go out and do the work. I introduce them to the manual so that they can see here, it's all in here, how to do this work. And I've led you through it as best I can. We say goodbye, and then I'll follow up with people as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. And I think having the physical scripting there
is
really helpful, because it's a lot to remember, but it's something that you practice over time. But I think that the workshop is so worthwhile, and especially for new parents, I know it's hard to leave baby, but if you can commit to this, it will support you so much to grow together and grow as a family.
Yes. Yeah. Because, remember, if you start feeling good and safe and comfortable and connected with yourself, with each other, just in yourself, with your partner, that little child, you're giving that message to them, right? You're doing that safe connecting, and that little child is taking it in. Mum and dad like each other. Yeah. I've had couples in here say that they've started to hug and look at each other more at work, at home, and their 3-year-old has started going, like, what are they doing? And, it's just so lovely to hear that. After a while, the kid won't look like that if they keep practicing that, because now the child will see that's normal and that's usual mummy and daddy. But because it's so different, already that child is messaging, I know you don't like each other, and look at you behaving like this, what's going on? So that's a powerful thing too, isn't it? Yeah. It is a big thing to, put the brakes on life, and ask people this big job of looking after your special people. Yeah, it is a big job, but, I don't know how else to do it. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's so worth it. Just find someone, a babysitter, anything. Just honestly, there are so many tools that mean we don't have to walk away.
Yeah, no, there's more to know. And even if we do decide to leave, you're going to be nicer to each other, which is a powerful message for the little children as well, and each other. Yeah.
Right. Oh, Francis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I've done a lot of work. But no, thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's really beautiful of you, Carly. I really do appreciate it.
It's going to be so helpful for so many people. So thank you.
Okay. All right. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay.